Another case we had, which is very timely and it would fall right into Senator Dole's recent comments about what Hollywood is doing, was when we had the audacity to represent humor magazines, which was what you'd call a girly magazine, but the mildest kind of girly magazine imaginable, something that today wouldn't raise anybody's eyebrows. And it was published by a publishing company down in New York, or in Connecticut. And it was the same publishing company that did all the official publications for the Archdiocese of New York. And they must have had 50 different publications in their thing. This publication, as they explained it, was almost necessary to get on the newsstands, because when you got to the newsstands or to the in railroad stations and on the street hawkers and so forth, you had to have one of these magazines sort of as an attraction. You could be selling the Architectural Digest right next to it, but this was necessary in order for you to buy the line and so forth. So they published this, and it really wasn't very mild. It really was very mild. Bill Craig was the U.S. attorney who prosecuted it, and boy, he and Judge Connor really gave us such a hard time with this case. I remember one of the arguments saying they've flooded the state with filth and so forth. First off, the case was obviously brought in New Hampshire by the postal inspectors had some of these mails sent through the mail and then got them indicted in New Hampshire. They didn't go after him down in Connecticut or New York or somewhere, because they knew damn well they could never convict him. But they'd get him up here in New Hampshire and say they go up there with those yokels, you know, and it'll be easy to get a conviction. And they didn't get a conviction. The individuals in the company were acquitted, and the corporation was convicted with I think a $50,000 fine. My personal relationships with Judge Connor were nil by the time that case went over. It was awful. He wouldn't speak to me. He wouldn't have me in chambers. Kimon was in the case with me. He'd have Kimon come in and even abuse him a little for why he should even be involved in a case of this kind. And shortly after that, I went away on a vacation, and Kim had to go up there in some procedural matters, and Judge Connor started working him over again on almost how could you represent these interests. Well, the upshot of that was that the circuit court set the conviction aside, and so the defendants were not charged with anything. But it was a very, very trying time. The principal in that publishing company was a very prominent man in Connecticut who the year before had been named as Italian Citizen of the Year in Connecticut, and that's a big, big honor down in Connecticut. And he had a terrible time. And the lawyer for that company, as I recall, was the father of one of the Beatles' wives. Please. I don't remember which Beatle it was, but 10 years ago I could have told